This lesson will focus on the reading foundational skill K.2d, which consists of isolating and producing the initial, medial, and final sounds in CVC words. This skill is a vital component of phonemic awareness instruction. According to Edwin S. Ellis, research indicates a strong relationship between early phonemic awareness and later reading success, and it links some reading failure to insufficiently developed phonemic awareness skills. Intervention research clearly demonstrates the benefits of explicitly teaching phonemic awareness skills. The lesson provided in this presentation is based on ideas and resources from the 95% Group Incorporated, MLPP, and Florida Center for Reading Research. The last slide will provide links to the resources if you would like more information. According to MLPP, in order to connect oral language knowledge to written text, children must become aware of the individual sounds that make up words. Isolating sounds is one of the first steps in this process. At this stage, it is not important that students are able to connect the sounds of the letter, but instead are able to break up words into separate sounds or phonemes. This will help to create a solid foundation for sound spelling and decoding. This standard requires the use of CVC words, which contain a consonant, vowel, and consonant. These words are used because the majority of CVC words have three distinct phonemes or sounds. It is important to note that just because a word has three letters, it does not necessarily mean the word has three sounds. For example, the word car consists of two phonemes, k and r. Provided on this slide are 4 examples of CVC words that could be used in this lesson. There are 3 skills covered in this standard: isolating the initial sound, the final sound, and the medial or middle sound. While these skills should be taught consecutively, they should also be taught in isolation. Research from MLPP and 95% Group suggests teaching the skills in the following order: initial sounds, then final sounds, and finally middle sounds. According to MLPP, the most difficult sound placement for a child to identify consistently is the medial letter position in a word. Therefore, this skill may require more time and practice than the first 2. This lesson is meant to serve as an intervention for students who have not yet mastered the skill of isolating sounds. This lesson assumes that you have already taught these skills in a whole group lesson and that you have determined what students are not yet proficient. In order for this instruction to be successful, it must be taught in a small group setting, with no more than 5 students. This will allow each student the opportunity to manipulate the materials and allows for differentiated instruction. This lesson should be no more than 15 minutes in length. This lesson is based on the Fisher and Fry gradual release model, which includes 3 to 4 different components. It includes teacher modeling, the I do, guided practice, we do, collaborative learning, you do together, and independent practice, you do. It is important that all of these parts are present each time the instruction takes place. Provided in Edify are the resources needed for this lesson. You will need an Alkanen box and 3 chips, 2 of one color and 1 of another. Alkanen boxes are a great tool used for segmenting words into phonemes. This will most likely be your students' first exposure to Alkanen boxes. However, students will encounter them again in later lessons. You may use the printable chips provided, bingo chips, or 2-sided counters. Introduce the lesson by setting the purpose and engaging students. For example, begin with, as readers, we need to be able to stretch out sounds so that we can figure out words we do not know. Today we are going to learn how to listen for the first sound in a word. Next, build interest by showing students the pictures of a hat and a hen. Tell the students the names of the pictures and ask students to comment on what is similar about the words. If possible, guide students to the realization that they both begin with the sound. The purpose of this is to begin the thought process of isolating certain sounds. The first portion of this lesson is the I do. Here you will model the skill for the students, thinking aloud as you do. Begin by explaining that you will be using the acronym box, which helps to break words apart into sounds. For this lesson, you will only use CVC words, which have 3 sounds. Explain the purpose of the acronym box and how it will be used during this lesson. Continue modeling for students, explaining how to move the chips as you stretch the sounds. Stretch the word can and move a chip for each sound. K, a, n. The red chip should be in the first box, as the purpose is to identify the initial sound. It may be necessary to remodel this concept later in the lesson if your students are struggling. After saying the sounds and moving the chips, locate the red chip. Explain to students that the red chip is in the first box, so that is the first sound. Identify the first sound and then repeat the whole word. Continue to model this concept with several different CVC words, thinking aloud each time. The next portion of this lesson is the we do, where you will guide students through the skill. Give the students a word and stretch the sounds for them. Have the student move the chips as you say the sound. Ask the student to point to the first box and identify the first sound in the word. Repeat this process until every student has manipulated the materials at least one time. The final portion is the you do, where students practice the skill with very little or no help from the teacher. In this section, you will give the students a CVC word, such as cup, and they will move the pieces into the acronym box as they say the sounds. After they move the chips, ask them to identify the first sound in the word. If a student is struggling, remind him to point to the first box and locate the red chip. It is important to remember that the focus of this lesson is initial sounds. Therefore, it is not necessary to intervene if students are not able to segment the middle or final sound of the word. These skills should be addressed and taught after students have mastered the initial sounds. After students have shown an understanding of this concept, extend the lesson with a circle map. A circle map is used to brainstorm ideas about a certain topic. In this case, it will be used to brainstorm words that begin with a particular letter. There is a circle map template located in the lesson plan in Edify. Choose an initial letter and have students think of all the words they know that have the initial sound. Quickly write the word or sketch a picture. You can also have pictures of CVC words ready that students can sort and put into the correct circle map. Once students have shown mastery of identifying initial sounds, move on to identifying final sounds. According to research provided by the 95% group, the skills should be taught in the order of initial sounds, final sounds, and medial sounds. The format and materials in this lesson can be used to teach all 3 skills. There are several different ways to assess this standard. One way is to play a game where students hold CVC cards and lay them down when they hear the correct initial sound. This game can be adapted for final and medial sounds as well. There will also be formative assessments for each substandard available in Edify. These resources are available in the lesson plan and will help to build background knowledge on the standard as well as to provide additional information and activities.